Get the recording started again.
Marsh, do you want me to
Recording
sit
in
down or-
progress.
I think we're okay with Dave. I guess if we have any further questions, we could probably run it by Justin. So I think we're good, Dave.
Okay, thanks for the great day, everybody. Thank you,
Thanks,
Thanks, Dave.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
What do we need to do on this as far as the,
Recommend the
Say on
settlement.
advice from council, we need to ratify a settlement agreement, and if we want to move it to the full board, basically, something of that. I'll make that motion to ratify a settlement agreement to move to the full board, for the May meeting.
I'll second that. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. Is the next one Pink Kettle LLC?
Yep.
What do we
Yes.
have on this?
So, no response, multiple letters, I did a certified letter to them about their arrears, this month, and they did actually, sign the certified mail, but your receipt back, so, but still, no response.
So a
no
little
phone.
background on this. Remind me, what are
They
we
They
talking
had
about?
a store in the mall, and they've closed the store, and it's April Morales. And she owes $9,215 and change, and it's been 9 months since our last payment, and I'm just getting no response, and I'm just, if anything, it's a FYI to the loan committee that I have another problem child on our hands. And just please advise.
What should the board's next action be? Marshall?
File a judgment. We're done with it.
Yeah, well, I
To
mean,
her
what
personally.
have we done other than try to
I
connect
got
our
our personal guarantee, right?
I didn't create the loan.
We have to look at the loan documents, but that's likely the
She's still
scenario.
local?
Yeah, who is she? Something like-
She's, I don't have the address with me, but she is definitely in Watertown.
Okay.
Yeah, and they closed in February in the mall. And since January, I've been giving monthly letters like I've done everyone else. And finally with I've called 3 times, no response. And now I did certified mail this last time just to say, okay, did they move? I mean, but we're not getting return mail, so I'm just FYI, and what are our next steps?
Can you get us the details of the personal guarantee, Marshall or Arena? And,
We'll review that at the board meeting.
Okay,
Is that fair?
yeah, they're
Take
9
action at
months
that point,
behind and
appropriate
they've
action.
only been closed for 3 months,
correct.
so.
With no contact, no nothing, you might as well just do the judgment. Charge it off and do the judgment.
Good news is over half a loan was paid off.
Yeah, it started out 24,800.
Okay.
Bubble tea.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Never liked that tea.
All right, so you'll have more
You
information
drinking tea now,
Or is it
Jay?
at the board meeting,
More information for, and exactly what our plan is.
what our plans, what a recommendation.
Do you need a motion for that, Marshall, or is that just?
It sounds like more of a direction, a directive,
Okay, that's.
I would say, Rob, if that makes
I
sense.
just making a recommendation to the full
Sure.
board, what guarantee is, and Doreen, like from your opinion, this doesn't really need to be written off until about October, when we start prepping for, audits, right?
We have time, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, there's no advantage to write it off tomorrow
It's
between
not.
October, like, it's meaningless on the balance sheet, and something miraculously might happen.
Correct.
If Harry's actually, considering paying us, I have faith in humanity again.
Okay.
All right. Moving on. Are we ready for unfinished, other business?
Yes.
Preliminary discussion on,
Yep.
the housing project in Sackett Harbor?
Yeah, so as everyone is mostly aware, Corey Lawler is planning a project and would like to, a housing project in Sackett Harbor near the battlefield, and would like to propose to the board an application for a pilot for this, for these units. I can do a quick narrative of what the project is according to his application, which is not complete, but he did send to me and asked that we give it some a review. Maybe that's not the right word. He is going to be coming to us at loan review next month in hopes of a potential approval at the June meeting, but he's planning the construction of 4 16-unit multifamily apartment buildings containing 1 and 2 bedroom units per building. Each apartment is designed to be 1,350 square feet. In conjunction with the structure's exterior parking, the site needs to be met with appropriate paved areas, including stormwater control for the entire site. And the project is planned on the property located at Madison Barracks on the shoreline of historic Mill Creek. Now, one thing that everybody needs to know, this is really the continuation of a project that was started a while ago. I believe around, Peg, when do you think?
2012.
2012. And he never finished this last phase, and this is essentially the last phase. I told Corey that we were going to need a new application and really look at this as a standalone project. But it is something that we approved in the past, and take that for what it's worth. So
This is not a continuation of the project. It's a plan development district. He got a plan. We approved 90 units.
Okay.
He built 50. He's now planning 72. And I don't think he has zoning approval. I think he has to go to the planning board and the village board and get an amendment to the PDD based upon his new site plan. So I think we're gonna need some certification from the planning board that he has a zoning permit. I don't know how long his permits before they expire. Now, the PDD amendment for the additional 40 units is probably still valid, but you'd still have to make sure it was built in conformance with the original plans. And I don't think it's there. I don't have a problem with them being built there because I supported it when we did the original one.
Yeah.
But this is a dramatic change from the original plans. It's an additional 32 units on the same footprint.
to be clear, I mean, I just, as far as what this body is considering, this is 100% a new project. And I did make that clear to him when we first started those negotiations. Now, all of that is, I guarantee you're 100% right, Paul. But as far as we're concerned, I guess, my wording of it being a continuation of the previous project is obviously is not correct. But I want this board to look at this as a new project.
Oh, I don't disagree with your statement.
Okay.
I just think as a new project, we're going to want to have new approvals, new seeker, because it's 12 years since it was originally done. The seeker may change. And originally he was wanting to just pick up and start the previous agreement. And it was, we took on the housing projects back then because of the Fort Drum housing need.
Yep.
That's the only reason we took on housing. Not sure I have a problem with considering housing again, as long as the taxing jurisdictions are okay with it. And if they are, I'm fine with it. But to sit here and say this is he sold off the other project. So I'm not sure if that didn't end.
Do you have any thoughts on this, John?
No, I agree totally with, Paul's assessment of the current position. Yes, it really needs to go before the planning board. Absolutely, because it's changed dramatically. The seeker needs to be at a minimum amended. So procedurally, those things need to happen quite frankly, before we see it or could consider it or, you know, make a ruling on it.
Have you heard of anything on the agenda of the Hounsfield
It's
about
the
them
village,
considering
it'd be
this?
the village.
It's in the village and we don't handle the village.
You don't have the village, okay?
At this point, but
I
there
didn't
needs to
know-
be a conversation and Corey seems to be very attuned to planning board issues and, you know, approvals, et cetera. We've had discussions on other projects. So I would be curious whether or not he's given any consideration. I'd be surprised if he hasn't.
I had a meeting with Janet Quinn, but I didn't want to bring it up to her because I didn't know it was confidential about the project.
Right, I mean, Corey needs to address that.
But there's enough hubbub going on around the village about,
Ooh, I'll say,
there was an article in today's paper on
Yes,
a
there
hot
was.
issue.
Yeah.
And so I think we should tell Corey the agency's willing to entertain
Yes.
this project.
Yes.
He should have his preliminary discussions with the planning board. As a PDD, I think the final approval comes from the village board for an amendment to
It
a
does.
planned development district. And go from there. I don't think it's a 1 month and done type thing,
Might not be.
I don't think it is either.
but
Yeah, Marshall, speaking from the full board perspective, don't bother supplying an application until they actually have all the documents ready to discuss. I don't feel like wasting time. This is another one of those UTEP things where I think we need to look at a larger down payment from council possibly. You know, there's just a lot of moving parts here.
Agreed.
Nothing
Agreed.
ever goes quickly. This particular applicant also has delayed some other developments for close to a year. And rightfully, possibly for great reasons. I don't feel like jumping through hoops. We don't need to rush. Let him set the tempo and provide all the documents. When the project is serious, provide all the documents and it's all set. Board can
Agreed.
consider it. Just like every other project that falls under UTEP, we have no prejudice. But don't give us part of the bill of goods and then have us quickly make a decision, which we've been forced into before. And then, oh gosh, there's more to the story. So that's just my opinion from the full board perspective.
So all we were tasked with today with this committee is just taking a preliminary look at this. We've taken the preliminary look. We've got
This has
some
been
points.
helpful,
Yeah,
honestly.
we've got some points that need to
Yeah.
be clarified, some very important points. If you get those clarified, if he wants to put a full application together and assure it, at a minimum, this committee that these preliminary steps have been taken and approved.
Yep.
The answer is certainly we'll consider it.
Perfect.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, Marshall, from when we get into this discussion, the full board, I guess I'd like us to articulate where within the UTEP this falls, like language wise. I thought we weren't exactly considering certain housing, and if this is housing, maybe it falls under, I know why it was built originally, and it was more of a Fort Drum impetus. Is that the same impetus for wanting to subsidize, apartments essentially?
I guess it might, it's a good point.
And it's not a disagreement, it's just I want to make sure we actually have our due diligence why we're considering one thing and we've not considered
I
another.
think it's incumbent on Corey to make that argument.
Okay, no, I'm
Yeah.
just putting it out, we need to articulate why.
It's incumbent on him to make that argument. If we
Okay.
agree, then we'll move forward. If not, I agree with you.
No,
Let's do it for the right reason.
Yeah, I just get scared as we move forward because we've tightened up our UTEP and we've had discussions.
Yes.
of Similar style projects and some don't have the support that.
Okay.
others might.
All right, any other business to bring before the committee? Hearing none? Do I hear a motion for adjournment?
I'll make a
I'll make a
motion to.
motion to adjourn.
I'll second. All in favor? Aye, adjourn. How's that? Now we're off to the Buildings and Grounds Committee.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll call that to order. We've already done the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good day.
Thanks, Chuck. Appreciate it. So we have just one other piece of old business, and that's this National Grid road easement request that they have submitted earlier. Justin, thank you for being on. I'm going to turn it over to you to give us the synopsis of where we stand with the language and costs being, reimbursed, et cetera.
Oh, sure, yeah, and thank you. As you're aware, through a property acquisition firm, had approached the IDA previously with a form of right-of-way easement. We didn't get a lot of details on it other than their proposed easement, and I worked with Grid directly in their legal department, we work with frequently, and they're generally great to work with. We learned that the temporary roadway is requested and needed in connection with what has been approved for Grid to upgrade the coffee station and a large transmission line to serve that. I think it stretches all the way, from Onondaga up into the city. So it's a large project. As part of it, they need at least a few years of time and access to IDA-owned land with the temporary road builds to undertake that long lead time construction activity. They confirmed their permitting's all in place, which is important for us. If we're gonna approve something, we wanna make sure that seeker or anything else is taken care of. And you may remember our turn lane easement exercise with your other asset. We went through the process and literally added the same insurance and indemnification provisions just in case bad things can happen. So if someone gets hurt on your land, you're indemnified and there's insurance in place. So I've added those red line provisions and let National Grid know that the Building and Grounds Committee would be considering this for approval and then possibly advancing it to the full board for formal approval, subject to a couple things. One, they've offered for an undefined 5-year period to pay you $1,300, which would be about $24 a month. So it's up to you to consider what you think is a fair price for a 5-year period of having heavy construction activity run through your land. It's admittedly 700 feet of temporary road over your land to some other land. But some thought could be given to what you think is fair. And anything is on the table within reason, along with Grid picking up your costs and expenses incurred to deliver this right to them.
I got you. Okay.
As an anecdote, because we've done it in other places, and I discussed this with Marshall, with NYSEG and National Grid and other counties where they've had significant size transmission, distribution, or substation work going on that helps industrial and manufacturing or actually direct IDA projects. IDAs have worked with the utility to put together an agent agreement to provide sales tax assistance if they want it. And if you're so inclined to provide it, with an eye on finding this or using this as a fairly easy and direct way to generate administrative fee income, if that's something from a policy perspective that you're interested in. They haven't circled back on that because I'm guessing that's a question that needs to fire up through many divisions and layers. So I'm not sure that we'll get an answer by next week, but we put it out there as a possibility, and we've shared the general markup of legal for protections, indemnity insurance. So that's where we're at, and I'll leave it to the committee and the full board to think about, is $5,000 a year or something in your minds, what is this value? What is the value that's appropriate? And then we would embed that in the closing, and you would either collect that annually or all up front. It's entirely up to you.
So they're gonna have to clear land and do some of that. This easement was already there. In other words, what I'm getting at is that they're gonna make it whole again. So if they're taking trees out, they're gonna then replant some.
I think there's already a road there.
Yeah.
They're just improving the road. That's all. It's a short distance.
Because I think originally we thought
And it's a,
that we, attorney, all these additional fees, we shouldn't have to cover. And then
Yeah, we should be getting out of this at no cost to us. If we're getting $300,
Which is exactly what I think Justin has just
yeah.
confirmed.
I mean,
It's not costing us anything. We
Perfect,
get,
yes.
we
and
get,
we all know that the electrical distribution in that section of this county is in desperate need of upgrade.
Oh, it's,
So to try to get, I mean, they cover our costs. I'm okay with it. $1,300 is $1,300, and
I don't,
I round it up to 1,500. I don't know how they come up with $1,300 for 5 years, but I mean, and it's a section of the park that we're never going to be using.
yeah, it's remote. It doesn't present any issues with us. We certainly want to work with them.
100%.
Obviously, we need power at the airport site.
I greatly enjoy my relationship with National Grid, and
And it just,
and what I would like, because I'm always harping on them to get stuff back to me quickly.
Yes.
And I would really like to, if any time, so I have to be fair, so I want to get them this as quickly as I can. The issue being on the payment piece, yes, we're going to be covered on all of our fees on this. But it's one of these situations where we try to negotiate the price a little bit, and I feel like it's not going to get to a point where it's going to be some significant amount of money necessarily. So it's
We could always have them sponsor the dairy parade for $4,000 a year for the next 4 years.
Really, we just
Why
want to be
don't we
whole at
just-
the end of this.
I make a motion. Justin, so the red in this document is your adjustments from their proposed easement?
That's correct, yeah, it's mostly general legal.
Yeah, I noticed.
Indemnification, insurance, and literally the language matches what we required, on a dogged development survey, for his turn lane easement, so we're being consistent in the IDA's requirements for boilerplate. They had, and this is a food for thought, and you can sound off on it. They included a term for the temporary easement to start whenever they start construction, which is undefined, and then run for 5 years from that, which is undefined. So what I tried to do is frame it up and say, hey, listen, it's 5 years from the date we signed this thing. And much like with Mr. Sameo, when you start construction, please get us the insurance. So you don't have to do it today, but when you go on site, just make sure that the insurance is in place, and then we kind of don't care, as long as bad things don't happen, and they restore the temporary roadway as much as they can. I think they're going to widen it to 60 feet clean,
Right.
so there will be some brushing and hogging and maybe some trees. And if I were to guess, they're going to put down some stones, some base, so they can get heavy trucks through there no matter what season it might be. So the language that I've added requires them to generally restore it to its current condition when they're done.
Do we want it restored to its current position, or do we want a 60-foot road?
That's a good question. I defer to you folks on whether you would accept.
Why
I
would-
suspect when we take a look at it, if we decide that just leave it in place, they'll be happy to do that when they're done with it.
I mean,
And
that's an
I agree with
improvement.
you. I don't think that's a huge point that they need to spend much on, but I'd leave it in there for the time being.
Yeah.
And then we can make that decision.
I move that we send this to the full board for its consideration on Thursday.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Okay. So I have one other, I guess, question that maybe we can
Sure.
update. Speaking of power,
Mhm.
and the recent announcement that we received a Power Up grant. Can you give us a little synopsis on what that means? Is it, did I read it's $170,000 grant?
So it's a total cost for the project is 190. The award was 170 minus the 20%.
So what is the project for 190?
So the project for 190 is to extend 4 megawatts of power from essentially Patty Hill, about I believe it's about 3,000 feet, maybe it's 1,700 feet, whatever, It's 18 telephone poles to our site to deliver up to 4 megawatts of power.
And this is National Grid's number?
This is National Grid's number. Yep.
Okay.
Now, one key point would
It
be.
seems cheap.
Yes, it's kind of funny, we had joked about that we were almost disappointed that it came back so cheap because the award was so small. However, I will say, I've spoken with National Grid and we're gonna be applying for a grant for the extra 20 to keep our out of pocket, hopefully to zero.
And now that we're getting this award, what's the timeline on them actually extending the line?
Well, that's a little up in the air. The quote is good for 90 days, so we need to get this thing put to bed.
Okay, because I think it's critical that we get that power
We get the
upgraded
power
down there
there
for a lot of
as
reasons.
soon as
coming
possible.
up.
Yep.
Get that shovel ready.
Okay,
What, can I add to this? As
Certainly.
we're talking, getting to the airport park, now that we have potential for expansion, have we have any conceptual layouts?
There isn't any conceptual layouts. We have discussed doing them. And because there's a couple of different ways that this sort of build out of the park could go. But we don't have anything currently, and we're working on another grant with ESD known as Fast Track, Track B, to get some other aspects of the build out covered under a grant too. And that is in process. We are waiting
I
for
think that's
some stuff
important
from
because
Craig.
we should be marketing sites in it right now.
currently the status of the additional land acquisition by the county, there's 2 parcels, right, Bill?
Yep.
There's the Eisenhower property, and then there's what's the other name?
Gang.
Which are 2 different transactions, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, the gang is tied to FAA funds, or,
Believe so. Yeah,
and,
that
but
was-
the Roscoe, his property acquisition, the county is currently doing the due diligence, phase 1, wetlands, et cetera. So that's in process. Actually, I can give you an update on that. The phase 1 site visit was completed last week. Wetlands will be completed by Tuesday of next week. And that way, once those reports are in and the county can review those, they can make a final decision on whether or not, there's any issues with a closing. Am I correct, Bill?
Correct.
I think at some
So-
point we need to start.
Yeah, so once, that's gonna be in place, then we'll know what is the footprint, the 200+ acres that will be available between, what the IDA owns and what the county owns, which is, gonna be a developable 200+ acre parcel, and I agree with you. We need to start at that point saying, all right, what's a conceptual layout for this whole area? Because the property, of course, it is a little,
Disjointed.
yeah, it's not one big rectangle. But yes, that's the next step as far as I'm concerned, and this committee is concerned, that, yeah, we need to engage in some concept planning.
I asked you once, this is more in your other role as town engineer. Have we checked on the town zoning on either of those 2 parcels, whether it's going to be conducive to what the overall plan is?
You did, and I did start that process, didn't get a definitive answer, and that's a process that now that this acquisition looks like it's gonna go through, from the town standpoint, town will need to examine that. They may have to change the zoning on that.
Okay.
I don't know that that's a.
I don't think it's
issue.
going to be a big issue.
No, but it's procedurally, it's gotta be done.
Yeah.
Agreed.
These 3. I'm guessing they want to.
What's that?
That Roscoe's property here and these 2.
Gangs is
Just-
right opposite.
It's just this one and this one.
There's this other piece from Roscoe. I don't know if the
No.
county would buy that because the airport.
No, that's in the end of the runway. But.
Alright.
Yeah, so, you're right. So that is advancing.
Yeah. 100%.
Now we just need the bridge across the Black River, the pipe bridge, so we have.
You go drag that out one night, that actually get it going.
I say, put some airbags on it, float it down like a raft.
Tie all the rafts together on the,
Put a payment box.
anyway.
That's in process to get that piece of equipment out there. As far as the sewer is concerned, everything is done but that pipe bridge, complete. I mean, a connection to the
Right.
wastewater treatment plant, everything. And it seriously is, they gotta get that piece of equipment out of there, put the pipe bridge in, connect the pipe, and it's done.
Funny story, having dinner with my sister. She grew up in Watertown, you know. We're trying to explain it. Someone brought up the Patty Hill and the excavator, trying to explain to her, who's been in Pennsylvania for the last 30 years, where Patty Hill was.
Oh.
Was quite interested. I said, how much have you forgotten about the North Country?
Oh, yeah. So anyway, that's all exciting because it's all in process.
Yeah.
It's all coming to a head, and you're right, we need to start thinking strategically about that whole site and how we market it.
Which we have put together a concept plan in the past. This is a significant change from
Yes.
from the footprint, and excited to see what the possibilities are. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
And we had put together a marketing plan and all this kind of stuff. And some of it may still apply, but absolutely we're going to be getting it.
I'm thinking the road locations may change.
Sure.
In the existing park, will road
Likely.
Well, and yeah, we knew that when we were putting in the water and sewer.
But we'll
lines.
have power. That's important.
We
We got
got-
water, we'll
yeah.
have sewer. That's all good stuff.
We just gotta get gas down there.
We should probably let Justin go.
Yes, we should. Thank you, Justin.
Justin, thank you very much for all of the easement help and obviously with Dave too.
Yeah, certainly, and if you want to catch up on whether it was loan committee or building or grounds, I'm not sure. Perhaps if renewable energy wants to delve into it, the Oyo Wayside and Robinson Road conversation's kind of up in the air, so.
Yeah.
If there's a way to discuss that prior to next week's meeting, that might help, and happy to jump in that.
Have you
Say
had any
again?
clients call you about negative? We have a project in Chameau that's coming up with a negative assessment, and the state says then their assessment should be 0 using their model because of battery storage. You hearing that from any of your other clients?
Not in particular. I know there's a few instances right now in real time where Dorina, who's doing a wonderful job, has identified a few of your existing pilots that have your typical schedule inverted that are now rising against or at or above taxation under the model, where a conversation is probably needed with them to, two things can happen. We amend the pilots to state the greater of, or the lesser of, if you will. Or have them, gracefully bow out of the pilot itself and let them go deal with the assessor. Having less volume of work for reporting, I think, would suggest your preference as to one as opposed to the other. So I'd be happy to talk through those things. Dorina has a list. And then there could be some outreach with Marshall or any staff to talk about the circumstances and what the company owners would prefer.
Let's assume they have a new assessment based upon the model, and that generates a tax bill that's lower than our pilot. If they don't challenge that assessment, do we have a duty to inform them do we have a fundamental responsibility only to bill them for full taxation, or is that upon them to come to us?
That's a good question.
Well, I think they may or may not be aware. Some are, some aren't. Maybe some are just administering contracts and not paying attention to the rules. But I think in good faith, the IDA can reach out to the ones that we're aware of statistically and ask them what their position might be. The general municipal law has one clause in it that identifies defines pilot payments which shall be equal to or less than full taxes. And based upon that small phrase or sentence, the general rule is the pilots can't exceed full taxes. And anytime, and Dorina and Marsh may be aware, or anyone that's dealing with Paris, perhaps Peggy, when you enter inverted or upside down data into Paris, And very often ABO will follow up and say, hey, what's going on here? There's no pilot savings, so what's up? So in the spirit of
That's
that,
how we
you know,
got aware
outreach
of
is
it,
probably
right?
appropriate. If they want to amend the pilot to say lesser of and stay in a pilot for some form of certainty, that's one option. Or if they just want to say, hey, it's easier for us just to deal with the assessor directly and kind of get the IDA out of their bidding, and maybe there's a reverse perspective there, you know, to lessen your workload in reporting and maybe call some of your projects. Maybe there's a path there that makes everyone happy.
I like the lesser of route because who knows, in 4 years, maybe the system, valuation system changes and the taxes are once again more than the pilot. So I'd hate to let them out and then have the system change. But what we've learned is batteries have a significant downward pressure on the values, along with as host community benefits are now an expense. And the community adder, when that runs out in that's a 3 or 4 year benefit to them, there's a major drop in the value then. So that's one of the reasons why Sapphire bailed on the pilot. You know, I probably would have done the same thing too, but it goes back to concerns I have about letting these go that far out. If we had collected the fee before they did their homework, we'd been in a lot better position.
I think we've changed that by
Yeah.
fees coming in up front.
Yeah.
I think we learned from that.
So
Or
that battery piece, that's just not a mistake by the state?
No, I'll send you the email I got. The state says
yeah, it'd be nice.
batteries, see, 5 megawatt facility is only going to generate the same amount of electricity to the battery. The battery doesn't give them ability to sell more. It gives them ability in the dark to sell the power they generated during the day. So the revenue stream is not changing, but it comes with huge capital costs and all that. So they're saying it comes with a huge expense, and also the revenues they do receive from that, there's more intangibles revenues, which the state has removed in the most recent legislation, that they have increased their costs. We saw that when we drilled down through the actual costs and expenses in the model, and it drops the net out, well, they call it EB, earnings before income, before interest, taxes, and amortization.
Yeah.
It drops that number way down, which is then used to give you your estimated value. So if you, and what AES is doing, they're looking at this and they're saying, okay, in year 4, you have only 11 years or 20 years, whatever they're doing left, and they can calculate a spitball number where their assessment would be and what taxes would be. Now, I didn't see the same thing with utility scales yet, but the program doesn't work. I have to call Dorina because you have to have the most current version of software to run it. A lot of towns are having problems. They don't have Microsoft 360 to.
So this is essentially, the long story short is that this is the way of the states, this is the way the state is incentivizing battery storage to these projects.
Their calculation, what they told in this email is their data did not show any, I'm using the Chameau project.
Yeah.
Their data did not show any facilities with more than 70% of battery storage to nameplate capacity, okay? So Chameau is all 100%. So the 3 megawatt with a 3 megawatt battery does not run. You have to go to 70%. He said, use the 70% of whatever their output is, and that comes up with a negative number of $20,000 or $30,000. And then their most recent email says, we would then suggest you assess it for $0, the facility. And in Clayton, there's, it's not one of the ones just to measure. mentioned, there's one of the Oya projects has battery storage, and Alex at Real Property told me it had a significant downward pressure on that one to like $1.5 million off the taxable value, and I wouldn't be surprised if that one exceeds full taxation with the new value. It's just.
It's when the state is trying to give the developer some relief on that battery storage piece because of the CapEx on it. Right, I mean, these projects only, and I'm not, certainly not, I'm just trying to explain.
Listen, they're making money.
Yeah, I know it, that's the whole, their discounted cash flow is higher than what used to be an acceptable for, it used to be the 7 was the number where it made these things work. And now if it's less than 13, they feel like they're losing money because they're not making enough money.
Justin, when we do a reassignment of our thing, do we know what they sold the company or the project for?
We require a copy of their MIPA, the Membership Interest Purchase Agreement, and as much other detail as we can get. If you're familiar with the application, the supplement that we've
Yes.
included in there includes things like the community adder, ground lease costs, the price of acquisition. So we do require it. I will say, and Marshall can attest, we get a mixture of information sometimes where we don't have as perfect a picture as we prefer, but we certainly endeavor to get as much information as we can when these things do trade. So to answer your question, we get the information when we can, and sometimes the buyer is very cagey about what they paid to acquire an asset.
I think it's important that everyone on the board get up to speed on this because AES now controls all the utility scale projects in this county. 4 of them are permitted, well, 3 fully in this county are permitted, and 1 that crosses lines or county line is permitted. And you told me that Neil was looking to sit down.
Yep, previous to, he would like to have a discussion about the utility scale projects and what the county's thoughts are, ASAP.
Well, I think we should be generating a list of information we need for him. I'd like to know, they have to have the order they're doing these projects.
Mhm.
Everything I'm seeing says everyone's all hyped up about Sugar Maple, but they just received their initial permit. And in a conversation I had with John a while ago, it's a long time from that. There's a lot of work to be done from the permit they just received. They're probably a year or more out from getting the go-ahead.
Mhm.
Where are they gonna start?
Greens Corners.
That is the biggest question.
Did they tell you that?
What's that?
Greens Corners.
Greens Corners would be first.
And that's probably the worst project they could take on first from an impact to agriculture and
I told Neil that.
I'm hoping they aren't looking for we have 4 projects, we want to have the same deal on each of them because Tracy, which is remote, less valuable ag land, it's hidden.
Yep.
You aren't going to see it. That one there, you may be willing to step to the plate more than you would if we do it all on Greens Corners.
Yep.
And I hope they realize once one of these built, the community, I think,